Hi Ofsted, just a quick one from me, teacher here. Just wondering, saw the announcements this week of how you're making reforms to how you judge schools and observe them. Just wondering, what on earth are you thinking?
Raising standards. That's what we do. We are fixing education.
Right, okay. So let's just rewind for a second if you think that's what's happening. You did, I think a while ago, you called it a listen, or was it? No, it wasn't just a listen.
It was a big listen.
Oh,
we listened big to you guys.
You did. But did you hear anything we said? Because I'm pretty sure when teachers were typing away saying, oh, Ofsted are listening. Isn't that nice? Isn't that lovely? And we type it away. I'm not sure this is what we asked for.
What do you take us for? Of course we listened. We listened big. Did you not hear that?
Okay.
We listened big to everything you said. And you told us, get rid of those one-word judgments. It's too much pressure. An overall judgment for our school. That's nasty. So do you know what we did? We scrapped them, didn't we?
Yep, that was good. And we were very, very grateful. I think back at the time, we were all like, wow, Ofsted are on the same page as us. We're getting rid of those one-word judgments.
Thank you.
Also, you got rid of those outstanding labels and requires improvement. And we thought, you know what? This is a step in the right direction. But then we saw what you replaced it with.
Well, we replaced it with a much better system. We got rid of those one-word judgments that were horrible and putting all this pressure and crushing schools. And we replaced it with 9 different standards in which we attach a colour.
Okay.
And the colours have a one-word attachment.
Okay, it's cool. So just to clarify what's happened here, you've got rid of one overall judgment, which is scary and horrible, replaced it with a much more granular system where we can still get judged on individual things massively over the top. And instead of just having a word, you've got rid of the word, changed it for a colour. So we've got a nice, lovely Nando system. And then when we had the colour, you thought, you know what these colours need? One word attached to them.
That is exactly what we did because we listened to you and that is what you wanted.
You're never, ever going to change, are you?
We changed for the good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Teach, Sleep, Repeat. My name is Dylan.
And my name is Hayden. We are here to listen to you, and you are listening to us.
Hayden, you snap out of the skit now. You're not an absurd Ofsted spokesperson trying to justify the most insane changes we've ever seen.
I'm so sorry. I really got into character.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. We're going to talk about it more a bit later on. Okay, so if you click on this episode, we will dive into it, and I'm sure you're waiting to hear exactly what we have to say about the new, what's been dubbed Nando's card system for judging schools.
Literally.
Your absence is lemon and herb. Anyway, let's have a quick catch up, shall we?
Yeah.
I wanted to talk first, Hayden, about something rather exciting because I'm not sure what's happened in 2025 with the podcast. I don't know if behind the scenes someone is just sharing us to an unreal platform or we're just being pushed out there or maybe just simply we are growing. But the podcast has reached number 12 in the UK education charts. And to me, when I see the people around us, huge podcasts, I find it insane.
Well, considering we weren't even in the charts.
I know.
You know, even just like a couple of months ago.
We've flirted with the charts before. We've been in the roundup. We've been in the top 150, baby. Let's go. But so, in the last few weeks, it's gone insane. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been listening. Not only are we 12 in the Apple education charts for the UK, we're in like the top 30 for Spotify as well.
That's incredible.
It's just mad.
And that's a harder one to get into, isn't it?
I think so. I think the algorithms are a bit like different how they judge. I don't know. But at the end of the day, these big, huge platforms for podcasts are ranking us at 29 and at 12. And it's just
I just think it's mad because I don't know how people that listen could actually help us do that. Because they clearly are doing something. And I wonder what that thing is that they're doing.
Maybe it's because they're rating us and sharing us and doing all of those good things. So that's what I wanted to say first. Just a very quick thank you. I'm not trying to blow our own trumpet too much, but you know, we have done nearly 100 episodes now, and this, you know, it takes up a chunk of our week. We love doing it, but seeing almost like the rewards being reaped in that way, it's definitely really nice. And I do have one shout out.
Oh,
we've not done a shout out in a while, but I got a message, and basically, I wanted to just mention 3 of our favorite listeners, 3 of our biggest fans. And those people are Theodore, Ivy, and Ellis. Now, if you're listening to this in the car, it's because you have chosen to listen to Teach, Sleep, Repeat because your mum says every time it comes on in the car and you put something else onto Spotify, you 3 all complain and moan and say, God, I want to put Teach, Sleep, Repeat on.
Hang on. How old are these listeners?
These are children in their mum's car who want to listen to Teach, Sleep, Repeat, and they always ask to listen to the Unearthed story or rewind back and have all the funny bits. So you 3, I want to say, you are 3 legends. Your mum, she's 4th on the list, but she's a legend as well. But you 3, a huge thank you. And I think it's you 3 who's caused us to be this high in the charts.
I can't believe it. Top listeners. We'll stick around because we've got a really funny story for you in a moment. Really funny story. I thought you were going to take the mick then. When you started that, I was like, here we go. It's going to be Rishi Sunak again. Top listeners. And it was serious. I love that.
For about 6 months, I think we had 4 listeners and one of them was Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that
I thought it was really nice. So anyway, quick shout out for those guys. Appreciate you so much. And everyone else who's been listening, whether you've been listening for a long time and you know what on earth Hayden was talking about when he mentioned Rishi Sunak. If you do, you've been around for a while. But if you don't, well, why don't you go back and have a listen. Anyway.
Right, Dylan, I'm jumping in here because I want to talk about my week. Okay, and I want to talk about a very specific thing that happened in my week that I've been looking forward to sharing on this
Couldn't
podcast.
think what that is.
Could you? No, I'm sure you couldn't, because it definitely doesn't have to do with you ruining my day.
Go on,
it was
go
funny.
on.
So I was teaching PE this week.
Yep.
And I had, I went outside. We're doing some tennis. It was fantastic. We're using the whole playground. Brilliant. Kids learning, all because of my fantastic PE guidance, because I'm such a PE specialist. You see, I'm a specialist in every subject because I'm a primary school teacher. And I just happened to be standing near Dylan's classroom, which you can see out into the playground. And I thought, well, I don't want to get too... I told my kids, I said, oh, guys, come back a little bit. I said, I don't want to go too close to those classrooms. Don't want to disturb their learning, because, they'll get annoyed at me for constantly hitting tennis balls at that window or whatever. Next thing I know, door opens, extremely dramatic, whole class at the windows like this, like as if they're like, oh no, we're trying to escape, okay? Child bombs it at me and shows me a picture. It's been folded in half. I'm thinking, what on earth is he doing? He said, can you sign this? Can you sign this? I need your signature. We need your autograph. The whole class needs your autograph. Open it up. Dylan, take over. What was inside?
It was a picture of our good friend, the priest Keith Hebden. Who looks astonishingly like you. And we had printed this picture. We were doing an RE lesson we're doing Christianity at the minute, and we were talking about how in the lead up to Holy Week and Easter's coming up, we talked about Keith Hebden, who is a priest who went on a hunger strike and runs food banks, and his big push was how to help people who need it the most.
I know, I did it. What are you telling me for?
Well, the point is, I'd printed off some clues about him to dot around the classroom when we were gathering information. So one of them was just a picture of him, but he very clearly looks like a priest. He has got the dog collar on, and he does bear a striking resemblance to you. He's bald, you've got a similar face, and you got the dog collar on. And
I don't normally wear that. Just to clarify, I don't normally wear the collar at school.
You don't, but it's funny because you're not religious at all.
I know.
This is why it's funny. Yeah. Anyway, I printed off some clues, some quotes from him, whatever, and we spread them round, and the kids came in from lunch. And this child said to me, are we learning about Mr. Stevens this afternoon? Because he saw the picture. And I was like, oh my God. And it wasn't even just oh, he's bald, isn't that funny? It was he literally thought it looked like you.
Yeah.
That's so funny to me. So anyway, we're doing our lesson on Keith Hebden. And his story is quite amazing, really. Genuinely, the kids were that's really cool, isn't it? Yeah, no problem. But this one kid couldn't let go of the fact that this person really looks like you. And the picture of him was stuck on my wall. Yeah. And he put his hand up, and I was obviously in the flow of teaching, and I was just not thinking. I was like, yeah. And he went, can I take the picture out to Mr. Stevens, please? And I said, and to be fair, I looked, and you were mid modeling. Yeah. Amazingly, can I say, how to serve a tennis ball? I mean, I didn't think you'd be able to do it, but you look like a mini Roger Federer out there. It was amazing. Anyway, I was like, look, no, we can't. Look, we're in the middle of our lesson. And I was just saying all this stuff. Really, I was like, you're just busy. I was like, okay, no, not right now. He was like, oh, okay. So we then carried on. And just for context, we've done maths and English in the morning. We're doing an RE lesson, and we're trying to fit in 2 lessons in the afternoon. It's an intense day for the kids.
Yeah, of course.
And obviously, after you've done a bit of input, the kids were just practicing doing their drills, and you were just kind of walking around. And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to make this happen.
This is the moment.
So I took the picture off the wall. I folded it, and I said, guys, listen, you're working really hard, okay? You're working really, really hard. So after this, you're going to come in, we're going to finish up our task, then we're going to do some DT. Okay, we're going to get ready for tomorrow. And they were like, yeah, okay, what is it? So I got the kid over, and I said, here you go, give this. Go out to Mr. Stevens now, take this pen and ask him to sign the picture of him. So this kid has never been more excited. Yeah. My whole class are suddenly like, what? And that's when they're doing they stood up. And I was like, it's okay. I can sacrifice 3 minutes of this afternoon to give them something to hold on to, a bit of fun. Yeah. So he bombed it out. He got to the door, and I was like, hey, wait. And I checked you were okay, and I was like, yeah, okay, go on then. And he did sprint.
You should have seen his face.
Honestly, if you ever want to get your children to run more quickly, do something like this. Because he was running like that, straight up to you. And then he brought it back in. And you had signed it, but you didn't just sign it, did you?
Yeah, I can't even remember what I put. What did I write?
You put St. Stephen's the Third.
Oh, yes. I was like, I'm going to do it seriously.
So now it's on our whiteboard. It lives there now. And honestly, the kids were so engaged afterwards. They did their work. We cracked on. And I think the whole story here is just, do you know what? If you have those moments with your kids, it's okay. You know, don't feel guilty. Don't feel, oh, what if this? What if that? Do you know what?
Yeah.
It was 3 minutes. There'll be some times where it's absolutely not the right thing to do. You want to keep control of your class, forever, fine. But do you know, there are some moments where as a professional, you can just choose to do something like that. And it was funny.
Especially when it's at my expense.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? It's much funnier.
I almost take the disruption to my lesson. If it's at your expense.
Exactly,
I'm like, do you know what? That's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
So my year sixes obviously were a bit like, what on earth has just gone on there? They were trying to play tennis, looking at me thinking, what's going on? They said, what was that about? I said, oh, just kids trying to get my autograph. And they were like, what? I said, what were you signing? I was like, oh, just a picture of a priest. They were like, what? I was like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just practice your serve.
There's too much to explain.
Yeah, they just wouldn't get it.
Too much to explain it.
Honestly, it was so funny. But you know what? It was funny and it made my day as well because it was hilarious. And the idea that those kids just had a few moments of fun and then back to latitude or whatever, no, back to the actual lesson of
Which was
the guy.
Quite a nice lesson as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he actually looked like you. That was so funny. That's what was so funny about it. Is you dressed as a priest. Like it's the biggest oxymoron I can think of. You being a holy man.
Can you imagine? Imagine me as a priest. Oh dear.
Anyway.
Yeah.
We had a message from someone this week. I wanted to reflect on it. And I wanted to kind of open this, not a can of worms, let's say, but like almost challenge ourselves a bit because the message did challenge us a bit as well. And it was from someone saying they loved the podcast. They'd seen how we're climbing the charts. And it's great. I love that you're reaching more people right now. A really positive message. And part of that positive message is, and part of the thing we love with you guys listening is when you challenge what we say a bit. And the main bulk of his message was, oh, and by the way, he said, you'll have to pass this on to Hayden because he knows Hayden does absolutely nothing for the podcast.
That's what he said.
Yeah,
he said that bit specifically.
Yeah, very specifically. So I'm just going to make sure that you know it's because you do nothing. I'm bringing it up now. So in general, he basically asked, you know, he said, you guys seem so passionate about leading maths, which we are. Really passionate about teaching in general, which we are. We absolutely love helping the kids out. It's like our calling almost. But when we talk about SLT in general, this person's part of SLT.
Okay.
And he just feels a bit like he doesn't like how we use the term.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, we've talked about this before.
Yeah, he's probably right. He's probably right. Because you know what? At the end of the day, this podcast, right? A lot of what we do in this podcast is we call out the rubbish. We call out the toxicity in this sector. And unfortunately for SLT, a lot of that toxicity starts at the top. So we quite often talk about this notion of toxic SLT. I have tried to in the past, but I mean, you'd have to go back some episodes when we really focused on this. Tried to say a few disclaimers along the way of like, by the way, we don't think this about everybody, but we are just here to call out the ones that are doing a bad job. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So is that what he was getting at? It feels a bit...
Because the message essentially was saying how completely understands how there are toxic SLT out there.
Yeah.
But from his point of view as SLT, who feels like he's trying to do the right thing, and so many of leaders out there do that, and it is such a tough job. Yeah. It did just make me stop and think for a second, like, do you know what? I'm not going to stop calling out the stuff. I don't think we ever should. No. I think it's a big reason why lots of people like listening to us, because it validates what a lot of people think and feel like they can't say.
Yeah.
But I do think there is room for sure for us to talk about really good leaders.
Yeah, definitely.
And one example of that is the fact we got a comment this week on our Instagram simply saying, do your SLT know about your social media presence and what you're doing? And I replied saying, do you know what? Yeah. And we talk about it sometimes and they very much know what's going on. They respect that we have the opinions that we do and we want to talk about it in the way we do.
Yeah.
Because we're not disrespectful to them at all. I think they understand that although we might not always match up completely on what we think, we're a professional and we're allowed to have an opinion.
Yeah.
And it struck me because the reply was, wow, that's great. I don't think many would agree. And I just thought, I don't think anything we say really crosses a line other than, I don't want you to say that. You know, I can't imagine SLT saying, oh, that's horrendous. That's being really rude and personally horrible to me. My opinion is that we shouldn't have to do 6 hours of work at the weekend.
Yeah. And neither should you. I think that's the thing we always say, isn't it? It's like we don't ever say, but SLT should.
Yeah.
Head teachers should be doing all this extra work. They should bear the burden. Do you know, that's not actually what we're saying.
No.
I think when you go up ladders in general in jobs, you are generally paid more because there is more of a burden to bear. I understand that idea. So do you know what? It might transpire that actually SLT and heads maybe do a bit more of that outside of school, and they feel like, oh, I should do it though because I'm being paid 70 grand a year. Do you know what I mean? But I would never sit here and say, teachers, we don't have to do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But SLT, it's your fault, so you should be going home and doing all my marking. I'm not saying that. Do you know what I mean? We're never saying that. I hope that doesn't come across.
No. And I think a big thing is attitudes of SLT is what we talk about a lot. And I just think that if your base attitude is you shouldn't be saying that, I was like, okay, can we look at what I'm saying rather than whether I should be saying it or not?
Yeah.
Can we look at the actual substance of the conversation we're trying to have? And I think I'm just going to say now, because of what this person has said, I do think there are so many amazing leaders out there.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, when we post on social media, and I see, you don't obviously because you don't have anything to do with
I don't do anything for the podcast.
So what I see a lot of are, heads commenting.
Yeah.
A lot of heads saying, I wish I could do this for my staff. The budget restraints are horrible. Or I do this for my staff. I push this as much as I can. I see a lot of positive leadership out there. And I just want those amazing leaders to know that when we talk about SLT, I hope you don't take it personally. And I hope that your overriding thought is, wow, I'm never going to be like that.
Yeah. Rather
than, oh, these guys are calling me out, because I'm absolutely not.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's a scale. You're not a toxic SLT or an amazing SLT. There is, you know what, the realistic side is there probably is a huge middle ground where people are trying their hardest to do the right thing, but because of the constraints of this system, which we constantly say is broken, by the way, and we know that, you're kind of forced to maybe do things that you don't even really want to do, but it's like, unless I do, the kids don't even get taught this week.
Yeah.
So I do get it that there's a space in that middle there of like people trying so hard to do the right thing, but occasionally being that, that they're forced to do perhaps an approach that isn't even really what they want to do in an ideal situation. Yeah. So that is different. We're not calling you out. We're calling out the people who are literally wake up in the morning and are like, I'm going to be toxic and I'm going to continue to promote a toxic culture in my school.
Because I'm in charge and what I say goes. And I'm going to make sure it changes because I saw this thing and I'm going to have no absolute thought for what it's going to do to affect you. It's better for my school, I think. So I've decided we're all doing it.
Yeah. Do you know what one of the biggest indicators for me is when people genuinely, and I don't think many do, is when they genuinely wholeheartedly believe the only thing that matters in a school is the progress of the kids.
Yeah.
When someone has that as the only thing, it's like, okay, this is probably not going to be a good place to work. I think it should be a big thing. That is it's kind of our jobs. I get it. Completely. All right. But when it's your only thing you think about as an SLT member, you're going to end up being toxic. I'm just going to say that. So the fact that this person's even commenting and thinking about it, the fact that you're even reflecting tells me immediately you're not that person. You're not that person. Those people aren't listening to this. Yeah. They don't care. They literally do not care.
Yeah. And it's that almost toxic use of phrases like, getting better never stops, or we can always do more, or there's no standing still. It on the surface, again, it seems amazing, but this job really is a bottomless pit. So when you are only driven by data and data points and moving children doing this, you become like the Academy Trust leaders who decide to exclude children because they're worse for data. When you are only thinking about data and we say, oh, it's our job to think about data, do you know what? In that respect, it's absolutely not our job. Our job is to look after those children who you've decided to exclude because your data will look worse. Yeah. You have failed those children. So it gets to the point where just focusing on data is actually detrimental as well. Rather than making the school look good on a DFE chart that you could go to and point to, fantastic. But you know what? What about this? What about the welfare? What about your staff? And I just think it's just such a big picture that it's too simplistic to just be like, well, my data's good, so everything I do is justified.
It's kind of like a last episode, isn't it, where we're talking about different metrics to measure like what makes education good. Is education good for children these days? We talked about it and we were like, yeah, it is if you just focus on the metrics you want to focus on. Do you know what I mean? It's exactly the same idea, isn't it? Oh, my school's great because my data's great. It's okay. Your teachers hate being there though. Yeah. And the children aren't even that happy. No. They're getting good data, but they're not happy. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't measure those. We don't measure those, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And we're not saying for anyone who likes to see us mention one thing and then make it think that we ignore everything else.
Go on.
We're not saying data is pointless. We're not saying that. We're saying it's a bigger picture. This happened this week.
Yeah.
Okay. I did a reel from last episode about this amazing PPA initiative for teachers. And if you listened to last week, you might remember it. But it was basically that this school had given staff a day a week of PPA instead of half a day.
Yeah.
And that was, it could happen because they do forest school that day, they do PE, and they do art with a specialist teacher.
Yeah.
And the point was that the school had invested in this. We can talk about the budget separately. I mean, I'd love to see that budget. I'd love to see what's going on.
Yeah.
But the point being that it was an amazing initiative for teachers because teachers' PPA doesn't cover the extra work they have to do. And just so we're all clear, we know that teachers are expected to do work outside of the classroom. It's literally part of our contract. We have directed time, and we also have that clause which says also there is a reasonable amount, and the whole debate comes into what's reasonable. There's a reasonable amount of work we have to do outside of directed time to meet the standards, etc. And that's what's abused by people a lot of the time. So we already know PPA for half day isn't enough. So this half day, it was just like a feel-good post about this head who's thinking about the well-being of his staff. 70% of the comments on that reel were from teaching assistants, support staff, people doing an amazing job in school, but almost being immediately angry.
Why?
And they were saying things like, oh, well, that's great for the teachers, but what about the TAs?
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's fantastic, but I'm a TA and I've got to do this and I don't get any prep time. Oh, it'll just be the TAs covering. What about their well-being? And I just thought to myself, that is not what I'm talking about. Like, this is a reel about a PPA situation for teachers that's really good for teachers. We have no idea if TAs are at a detriment because of this policy. I didn't mention them. I can't talk about everything in one reel. I didn't talk about admin staff. I didn't talk about SLT. I didn't talk about office staff. I didn't talk about the caretaker. There are so many amazing people in school who do really important jobs, but I can't mention all of them in every single reel I do. And I'm a teacher, so I'm talking about my experience and what I would like. I can't mention it. Like, if it's like someone commenting honestly and saying, "Oh, don't you care about animal cruelty?" Yeah, of course I do.
All teachers getting their PPA. Do you know how many animals suffered whilst they were doing that? Do you know how many?
Do you know how many worms were stepped on in forest school? Yeah. Okay, that's also bad. Like,
I get it.
Don't extrapolate, because what I think what wound me up more than anything was the almost suggestion that we don't care about TAs. Support staff are amazing. And what's your thought?
Let's take a moment, because my thought on that is I can see why it was a bit like, oh, it's annoying because they missed the point. But do you know what? There is a point, though, and let's just give them some love for a minute. We don't talk about TAs loads on this podcast. We occasionally big them up and say, yeah, you're doing a crazy job, but we talk about teachers because we're teachers, all right? We talk about teachers because we're teachers. We're talking about our experience. But TAs, do you know what? They are incredible. We often say that, you know that, but the situation that TAs are in, so if you're listening, you're a teaching assistant, we feel you. We understand the situation you're in, because the pay has been stagnated for TAs just as much, if anything worse, than it has for teachers. I know that at the moment, the unions are fighting for £3,000 to be added, which isn't even like a crazy amount, really. The fact that there's even going to be pushback on that is insulting to you, because you are the backbone of our schools. We can't function in a school without the support of TAs. It's impossible. Our workload is already, as teachers, is already unmanageable. So anything the TAs are doing to support in the classroom, to support outside the classroom, besides the classroom, whatever it is your role is, we need you in the schools. And we know that you end up covering as well in a lot of schools. This is like something I'm going to call out as it's just crazy part of our system. A lot of TAs end up basically being teachers because they're cover supervisors, classic HLTA, cover supervisor. So, okay, what do I do? Well, on the odd day, you might have to be pulled out of class to cover a lesson. Do you know what happens? 5 days a week, you're covering 3 lessons a day, and you end up doing as much as a teacher. And then you don't get any PPA yourselves. So I get it. Like, these are all issues that I think are dreadful. And I'm sure you agree with this. And we should do something about it. So just giving you a little bit of love at the moment and saying that we hear you and we're the big listen. Okay, and go back into Ofsted mode. The big listen here, we're listening.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we know it's dire, just as dire for TAs as it is for teachers.
Yeah. There's two kind of prongs to this for me, because I also think we need to absolutely go out of our way to help wellbeing for teachers, for teaching assistants and support staff in general, whether it's the family liaison officer, whoever it is, support staff in general. But there are two prongs to doing that for me. And I think maybe because we work in a school where I think it does take it quite seriously, a TA's contract in general, I think that is really seen as, okay, look, the first way we can really help with teaching assistant wellbeing is that we absolutely do not expect you to do anything outside of your hours.
Yeah.
So if it comes to prep for a group that they've got to do, I absolutely would never, ever, ever expect a teaching assistant to have to go home and prep that.
No.
I would build in some time within their contract, even if it means them coming out of the classroom for half an hour, because I've decided if this group is that important, I value your time too much to expect anything for free from you.
Yeah.
So the first prong would be to really respect a teaching assistant's contract. That's one way to go about fixing this, because it sounds to me as if from the comments, teaching assistants and support staff are being completely exploited. I had one person mention they're a teaching assistant and they have a Read Write Ink group. And they have 12 kids, and they're just doing the teacher job.
They're literally just teaching
They're
phonics.
just prepping. They're just teaching phonics. I say just, what I mean is they're literally a teacher. Right?
Yeah.
The school have gone, oh, that's a nice cheap teacher. They're prepping, they're marking, they're assessing. They're just doing a group as a teaching assistant.
Hang on, what the school's done is they've gone, are those kids going to get us the right data? No, they're a little bit too low ability. Shove them with the TA, cheap TA. Let's crack on with the kids who are key marginals. They're really close to getting our data. Let's give them, like we talked about last week. That's probably what's happened.
Yeah, and it's horrendous, because that teaching assistant's probably doing an amazing teaching job, not on the teaching salary.
No.
Should not be expected to do anything extra at all. And the other flip side, like you just said, is HLTAs or TAs in general who are covering basically all week should get some PPA. I've got a story. When I started my teaching as a newly qualified teacher or an ECT, you get your half day PPA every week, but you also get an extra half day, and we called it NQT time. I don't know maybe it's called ECT time now. I don't know, but just time basically because you're really just getting your foot in the door and learning. Here's a bit of extra release time. So as a new teacher, you get the equivalent of a day out every week.
Yep.
And it's almost like what we're saying all teachers should get, but it was really, really useful. And I remember there was a HLTA at our school that I started teaching at, who was like the mother of the school.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
The most amazing woman. I still like just think I'm in awe, like as a new teacher watching her with the kids and stuff.
Yeah.
She was like one of the top 5 teachers in the school. And she was a HLTA on a teaching assistant wage, completely exploited every week, because you'd walk into the staff room and you'd see the cover board.
Yeah.
And her initials were genuinely on every single half of every single day. So like she'd be covering in this class in the morning on Monday, that class in the morning in the afternoon on Monday. Next for same for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. All, let's say 10 slots of AM, PM during the 5-day week. Yeah. She was covering. And I went up to her. I remember I had a conversation with her and I just said, you're teaching more than me right now.
Yeah.
You are teaching more than I am. And I am on a teacher's wage that is basically double yours. And you're teaching more than me. Is that not crazy? And she basically went, yeah, it is. On. But you know what? Yeah, it's my job. You know, I love teaching the kids. I'm just going to crack on. And it's that amazing attitude that is exploited up and down this country that I just get so angry with. And then when people get annoyed at us for being negative or anything, I don't care, because that amazing woman who does an unbelievable job, if it's negative for me to say that she should be treated with a bit more respect, to be given time to do something, or the money for the job she was doing, then call me negative, because I do not care, because that should be called out and fixed immediately. It's disgusting.
I agree. And someone might, do you know what someone will come along and say? Didn't have to plan those lessons though, did she, at the weekend? So, covering. Okay, yeah, do you know what though?
Still have to sit prep there,
prep them, teach them, and mark them, which is like at least 2/3 of that job for half the pay.
Yeah, exactly.
No PPA, no time out, no break.
You could even argue with the pay, just give some time to just get your head in gear. Just look through some. When is she looking through the lessons?
I know, yeah.
Because you not only is it just like, okay, I'm in year 4, another year 4 curriculum. I don't really need to prep too much. I'm doing determiners tomorrow. I've done determiners before. How difficult can it be? It takes me 5 minutes. Often the HLTAs are teaching themselves the lesson beforehand. Yeah, so even if they didn't have to plan it, here it is. Here's the smart. And the amount of times I've spoken to a TA and they've gone, oh, can I just look at tomorrow's lesson, please? Because I'm not sure what we're doing. And I talk them through it. That's prep.
Yeah.
That counts as prep.
And just to add to that, across multiple year groups, you just said when you're in your own year group, you kind of get confident with you, because I know that I'm going to be in year 6 tomorrow and the day after. TA could be in year 2, then year 6, then year 3, then year 4, then year 1. It's like, that's mad. And then just to finish this off, the biggest insult is the HLTA is supposed to be prestigious, right? Comes with more pay. It's negligibly more than like just not being a HLTA.
Isn't it less than £1 an hour?
I have no idea, but I know when back then, because I remember talking to her, she was quite open. It was like £1,500 more a year than just being a TA, just supporting in the classroom as normal, to be a HLTA. I was like, so you're going from 0 teaching to teaching every single day all week. and you're being paid £1,500 more a year for this, like on top of your like £14,000 salary. It was just so insulting for what this person was doing. When I'm sat there thinking, I'm a new teacher teaching not even as much as you, because you're actually covering my lessons this week for one of them, because I get time out because I'm a newly qualified teacher, and I'm being paid like 15 grand more than you.
And do you know what I loved about this person in particular was always had a smile on their face, was the nicest person in the world, so supportive. And I feel like when I look back at my journey as starting off as a teacher, I got lots of help from teachers, don't get me wrong, but it really was specifically those, motherly TA figures. I'm going to think of a few from that school, to be honest with you, who I really felt kind of took me under their wing and helped me and kind of shielded me from all the rubbish that comes with it early on, because they took on so much of it and really helped me. So I'm so appreciative. And I think a big part of my reaction to lots of those comments was, I don't think you understand how much I love and care about TAs, and I really think it's a problem. So please don't assume because I'm talking about one thing that it means the other thing is like not important, because it really is.
You've nailed it on the head there. That's where it feels a bit like getting your back up, because it's like, no, because I agree with all you guys, and you're all commenting as if I don't. Exactly. I get it. Exactly. But yeah, big love to TAs. We think you're amazing. I think it's an incredible role in schools. It needs fixing along with everything else. So we're sorry that it's not being fixed as quickly as it should be. Now, going against the popular belief that I don't do anything for this podcast, we had a submission this week. Dylan, did you know that?
It's listeners saying it as well.
Oh, sorry. Did you know? No, not just listeners. Just you.
Wait, sorry.
We had a submission this week.
How did you know?
Did you know that, Dylan? The answer is no, you didn't, because I saw it, because I do check our emails.
I'll tell you now, we had about 40 submissions this week. So
all right, well, one of them I intercepted because I saw it come through on our email.
Are you joking?
No, seriously. Pinged up on my phone, and I was like, this is really good.
Did you delete it?
I deleted it. I put it in the archive in our because I didn't want you to see it. So I've got it on my phone.
Do you even know our password for the email?
No, what is it? Yeah, so it's a really short submission. It made me laugh, and I thought this is perfect to tell them on the podcast, because it'll make you laugh as well. Okay. So someone emailed us in and said, I work in a 2-form.
Oh, sorry.
Not that bit. That's not the funny bit. No, the funny bit's coming up.
Okay, go on.
Sorry. I work in a 2-form mainstream school. That's the funny bit.
Oh, sorry, I missed it.
No, you missed it. Anyway, I'll carry on. I work in a 2-form mainstream school, and we have daily occurrences of racist, homophobic language, fat shaming, children telling staff to F off, calling them names, children going berserk in class, throwing things, flipping furniture, storming out.
Sorry, where's the funny bit?
Right, hang on, it's coming up. But luckily, that guy on Instagram told you that teachers aren't leaving for behaviour, so it's all good. He was lovely. Remember you took the mick out of that Instagram comment?
That was that person. Oh my god. Okay. All right. When you say I've got a funny message, and the first half is that, I was like,
I was waiting for your face to drop. I was like, I'm going to say this, and Dylan's going to be like, oh no, Hayden, we need to delete this whole episode because you're wrong.
These things aren't funny.
No.
Yeah, that was insane.
Yeah.
Like, I this isn't really a rile up, but I'm going to not be riled up, so I'm going to really control myself here. But that was insane, and I think we've referenced this before. That's hilarious. That person's seen that on TikTok. You did a reel about how a teacher said they left because of behaviour, and what their comment was: teachers aren't leaving because of behaviour.
Yeah, and that's exactly it.
There are 20 people in the comments saying they left because of behaviour. The person in the reel is a teacher who left because of behaviour, but you just have this ideological stance in your head. No, it's not because of behaviour. It's because of everything else.
It doesn't exist.
No, it's because of behaviour. Because you know what? When someone throws a chair at me, that might make me not want to come to work.
Literally. And I'm laughing because it's so stupid. I'm not laughing at the situation. In the same way, we're not laughing at the fact that this person obviously works in a really challenging school, behaviour-wise. But he was being ironic and taking the mick out of the fact that he's completely squashed though, because someone on Instagram said, no, you don't.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you for invalidating my entire life and existence.
Exactly. Their point was that it's not behaviour, it's pay. There's always a line that people would take because they'll take the amount of money to do it. If someone paid you £1 million a year, do you know what? Yeah, okay, throw a chair at me. For £1 million a year, throw a chair at my head every day. I'd take that probably.
I can't wait to earn £1 million because I know what I'll be spending it on.
If anyone out there wants to pay me £1 million a year to throw a chair at my head every day, get in touch. Yeah. Okay, teachsleeprepeatpod@gmail.com. Whatever it is. I don't even know what the email is. It's in the episode.
I do, because I actually intercepted it, and it is exactly what you just said.
Good. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just get a grip. And do you know what? There's a wider point. When a teacher or someone in education says their experience in a school of what happened to them, okay, the reply, you can have a chat about how widespread it is. You can have a chat about whether it's a problem or not, or you can say, oh, well, in general, maybe this or maybe that, maybe you could have done that. What you can't do is just say to that person, no, didn't happen, doesn't happen, because you just look and seem insane. Okay, you can not like something, You can be uncomfortable with someone's opinion on something, but you can't tell them that that's not their opinion or what literally happened to them.
That is cool. We call that gaslighting. It happens a lot in education. And you know what? Because I know we're getting into this episode, but I just want to finish this section. I've got a few write-ups, but I just want to do one.
Go on, do
I've
one.
got one thing I saw, and it kind of links to that SLT conversation we're having earlier. And this is why I want to speak to that person again, even though we know there's loads of good SLT out there. This is the kind of thing, this submission here, that makes us go on a rant, okay? Because someone asked a question in a forum saying, is it the norm to have a book look every single week and then receive an email every single week criticizing everything that we do based on what they see in the books? And then we change all of those things based on what the head wants to be shot down further and criticized again, again, and again. It's just a constant negative downward trend. Yeah. That's what someone asked.
Yeah. What it is right. What I guess we can extrapolate this to nearly every industry ever. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just bad leadership. I really just think it's bad leadership. And I think specifically because we're teachers and we're in education and that's what we're talking about. I can just think of the average teacher and the amount of extra stuff they do just to stay afloat and exist, right? That should always trump everything when you're giving feedback to someone, because you have to start off by thinking, okay, wait a minute. I want to criticize what they did. Sometimes, right, what teachers do has to be criticized.
Yeah.
And it has to be improved.
Yeah.
Correct. There is a way to do it. And it should always come with the caveat of, but you know what? Yeah, okay, I don't quite like how this person's doing this. It does go against our policy that we all agreed on because we have a good way of making policy, etc. But you have to just think, that person did do 4 hours of extra planning on Sunday though, because we decided to change this big part of the curriculum, and they're putting a lot of effort into this job. And do you know what? They're going well above and beyond their contract.
Yeah.
So if they could do much less work and still be within their contract or their job.
Yeah.
So maybe within the job, when we have these policies and rules set, if they're not quite meeting those aspects of it, maybe we should just think that there's a bit of a balance going on here. And maybe the conversations that we have shouldn't be rooted in constantly criticizing what they don't do. Maybe if 70 to 80% of the conversation is about how amazing they are, or helping their workload, or seeing what they can reduce and seeing what they can change, those criticisms sit better in the end, and are more likely to resonate with them. And actually they'll go, do you know what? Yeah, this amazing leader has helped me so much. So when they pick up on this not quite being right and they give a reason for it and they treat me like a professional, I actually want to help them. I want to run for a wall for them, and I'm already doing loads. So I'm just gonna make these little tweaks here. Thank you for showing me that. If it's constant, you just turn off and you think, okay, do you know what? Not only am I turning off to this criticism, I'm completely disengaged from this job now, and I'm not going to do all this extra stuff that I was doing anyway. It's going to end up turning people off the other way of other things rather than fixing what you want to fix.
I agree. There is a level to how much criticism you can give before no one cares anymore. No one listens. It just turns them off. I recently have been planning some English. I've been spending so much time. This is a classic example. Like our school at the moment, we're revamping our English because you know what? It needed revamping. It was getting a bit outdated.
And we all knew that.
We all knew that. We knew it needed some time, and that is our primary focus this year. But it does come with a lot of workload. And do you know what? Schools can't then magic up an extra 10 hours a week to go and do that workload. I get it. So guess what? It's me at the weekend planning it, right? I spent absolutely, honestly, like 2 whole days of the holiday, one in the holidays and one at a weekend, planning this 3-week unit for English. It was on something completely unfamiliar to me because we've just genuinely not done it before, or at least in many years. It was on a balanced argument, quite a hard text type to do. And we've been doing it recently. And you know what? Some of the lessons, on reflection, I've been like, oh, I wouldn't do that next year. I would change it to do this, this, and this. So they've not been like exactly what I wanted. It's a little bit annoying because I spent so much time on them. And the idea that like a member of SLT, which they haven't, just to really make that clear, they haven't. But the idea that a member of SLT comes and looks at that planning and just goes, that was rubbish, that didn't work, look at the kids' books, this is terrible, you need to change it for next week. I would honestly, at this point in my career, I would tell them where to stick it. The problem is, 10 years ago, I would have just gone home and cried.
I'm so sorry, I'll do it right now.
Whatever.
I'll cancel my football that I've got this evening because I'll change it.
But right now, if someone did that, because of bad leadership, because they're not thinking about me as a human, like, actually, they did spend 10 hours doing this at the weekend, even though it didn't give them quite the outcomes they want, I would honestly, it would be a bloodbath of words, obviously.
and like, you're clearly a very competent teacher as well.
Yeah.
So these mistakes and these things that are going wrong, do you know what? Sometimes the question is, why are they going wrong? What's happening here that I can do to help this person? Rather than, that's bad, just say that's bad, fix it, that's bad.
Yeah, fix it. So, do you know what? When I spent 10 hours doing it, if I knew it was bad then, I would have fixed it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what do you mean just fix it? If I knew how to just fix it straight away, I would have done it in the first place.
And sometimes you have to teach it before you know how to fix it.
Yeah, exactly that. A few of those lessons, it was just like, okay, now I've done it with a class, I can see exactly what elements they're finding tricky, I would tweak that next time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just to back up that whole thing.
No, that's brilliant. Okay, I think we've talked about 74 different things.
We have.
Should we get to the actual point of the episode?
Yeah, we love to hook them in.
I know, right? We did a skit this week. It's not often these days that we do a little skit at the start. When we started, we did one every week, didn't we?
I know, and it was a lot of effort.
They were so fun. But we felt like we had to do one this week because of the changes that we saw from Ofsted. Now, our podcast releases on a Monday. So a few times what's happened is we've released the podcast on a Monday. We're like, let's talk about this really important issue. And then it's released. And in the morning, it's like, the government and Ofsted have announced this huge change. Okay, we're a week behind. But we had to reference this. We had to talk about it. So Hayden, in a nutshell, what have Ofsted done? Because there's been this huge big listen. They've got a new leader come in. They were talking about making change because it's, we're listening to staff. We're going to do what needs to happen to make Ofsted a force for good. So what's gone on this week?
So in a nutshell, they quote unquote listened to teachers' feedback. And the biggest bit of teachers' feedback was these one-word judgments are crushing. They put so much unnecessary pressure on teachers, and it's not fair to capture the school in a word or two.
Yeah, and it's specifically what they started off with was the headline judgment. I think that's important because still now schools are getting one-word judgments on the individual aspects that's been broken down. But the big one they immediately said was, what is really, really harmful is that one-word judgment for an entire school. Yeah. And that's simplistic and it doesn't hit the mark, and it's just... That was causing a lot of anxiety, wasn't it? Which
I completely agree with. It was, and they have got rid of that overall one-word judgment for a school because it isn't fair. It doesn't make any sense when a school is so complex to have one word that summarizes the whole thing. Like, what a stupid system. Yeah. And the other huge thing was about deep dives.
Sure.
So this idea that, we talked about it before, we're all just suddenly specialists, are we, in every single subject? What planet do you live on? Of course we're not. It was deep dives were adding on so much pressure to teachers, and it was massively negatively impacting smaller schools as well.
Yeah.
Because smaller schools, less teachers, they take on more subjects.
I think you need fewer teachers, mate. You need to requires improvement on your English, I'm afraid. And now your whole school requires improvement because you don't know how to do grammar properly.
And, jokes aside, that is exactly how it was. Your whole school is now requires improvement. And it was ridiculous. So they've got rid of this idea of deep dives as well. We're not going to come into a school and scrutinise you for 3 days scrutinise your history lead for 3 days.
Can I just pick up on that quick?
Go on.
Because what really annoys me about that is like what we said before, where management might say this is a really important initiative, and if you're not doing it, then we're going to pull you up. Imagine if a school didn't put hours and hours and hours into preparing for a history deep dive, or hours and hours into geography, and then Ofsted came and said, we're doing a geography deep dive, this isn't good enough, your school's bad, one word judgment, awful. What's kind of annoying is that now they're saying, oh yeah, that was bad, wasn't it? Yeah, you should never have done it because we've already got all the hard work done. We've already spent hours and hours of our own time pretending to be a geography specialist when we're not, putting hours and hours into courses, doing loads of folder prep work because you shouldn't have to do that for Ofsted. No, we shouldn't, but we do, don't we? And we do. And when you come in and perpetuate that this is normal, this is you being terrible. So it winds me up, even though they're doing the right thing to get rid of deep dives, it's really, really wound me up because the damage is done and you need to listen sooner. We are professionals. We're not just moaning. We work hard already. If we moan about something, it's usually because it's stupid.
I agree. So one of the biggest ironies that we'll look at, a good rant by the way.
Sorry,
I thought I've got nothing to add to that. So I'm going to move
on.
Yeah. One of the biggest ironies is that they did listen in a way, and they did say, okay, all right, we get it. Deep dives, okay, it adds unnecessary pressure on because there's far too many subjects, right? So every teacher in the school, with the way Ofsted works, not knowing what they're going to deep dive until literally the day before.
Yeah.
Every school was therefore saying like, right, everyone needs to imagine that you're going to be the one that's getting offsetted. So every single person has equal pressure, which is a horrendous amount of pressure because there's too many areas that we need to be expert in. I'm going to quote that again. There's too many areas that they might look at any one time. So in all of these too many areas that we have to focus on, it's causing us too much stress because there's too many areas at once to think about.
So very quickly, so they've got rid of deep dives. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. So they've done a couple of big things, right?
Yeah.
But you're talking. I don't know why you keep mentioning about too many areas. That's strange. Maybe we'll come back to that very soon. But so this week then, because those changes, the big headline change that was very quick, that got dropped. Talking about deep dives not being a thing anymore. Okay, be annoyed as we want. It's a good thing that we're getting rid of them.
Yeah.
So what was the big news this week then? Because it seemed to, like when we spoke about it, you said, "Oh, is this news?" We thought this was happening anyway because there was a bit of a leak a few months ago. What's been confirmed now?
Right. So what's been confirmed is one, the sliding scale that they're going to be using to, I'll get to the categories in a minute, the sliding scale they're going to be using that replaces the one-word judgments from before. You know those 4 one-word judgments that we had before?
Outstanding, good.
Yeah, they replace that with 5 one-word judgments now, but rather than being an overall judgment, it just judges in a specific smaller subcategory.
Right, because currently there are 4 categories that get judged.
Yeah.
And we're making that
up to 11. Yeah,
right.
up to 11, depending on your school. So one of the categories might be sixth form. Obviously, not every school has that. One of the categories is early years. Not every school has early years, right? But there's 9 sort of core ones in the middle
that all schools will have.
Yeah, all schools will have. So it just like this is my biggest criticism of the whole thing, is this idea that they've said, oh yeah, okay. So the problem with deep dives was it was too much pressure at once because there's too many areas to be looking at once, and it's not fair for teachers on top of their jobs to be thinking about all of these different areas. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to scrap what it was before, and we're going to make loads of different areas that we're going to look at instead, and we're going to really like subcategorize them, and you're going to be graded on all of them at once, by the way. Yeah. So we got rid of deep dives where we'll pick 1 out of the 10. All of them now, all 9 of these things.
So we're not talking about subjects.
They're not subjects. Right. So, there is an argument to say, well, come on, Hayden, calm down. They're not subjects. They're all essential things anyway, which, we can have a discussion about. Yeah. But my point is here, my overarching point is, they didn't listen to the idea that teachers are overwhelmed.
Right.
They didn't listen to the idea that there's too much pressure on teachers, and that is what is driving teachers out of this job. Because what they've done is they've made a system that puts too much pressure on teachers in so many different areas at once. It's the same thing repackaged in terms of the perspective from a teacher. Sure. There's no teacher, and we'll look at the data in a minute, that is looking at that thinking, oh, I'll be so much fewer stressed now. I'll be so much less stressed now because of this new system. They're just going to be thinking, oh, I'll be stressed in a different way.
It's scrutiny, isn't it? It's scrutiny where we completely need to be scrutinizing schools and teachers. But like you said, what is the role of Ofsted? Like, is the role of Ofsted to just come along and point a finger and say that's bad? Yeah. And come along and point a finger and say that's good? Or is the role to actually try and raise standards? And it's just like their mantra and what they say they stand for just isn't what they're doing. And this was a real chance to kind of shift that. And I feel like all they've done is repackage what's already there. Yes. Make it not look like what they'll... Oh, guys, it's completely different now. We're not going to say that your requires improvement in something. We're going to say that it's red and you're causing concern. It's like... Okay, you've done the most fundamental, like, top level change that you possibly could, whilst actually really changing nothing.
Yeah, that kind of says what I want to say about this, and we'll come to the 9 things in a minute, or the 11 things potentially. But I just want to say this is what's happened in my head. There is this circle of where Ofsted operates from within, right? Yeah. And within this circle, whatever they were doing, they were like, oh, this is bad though. And what they've done is they've said, okay, let's just reinvent this circle in a different way. Let's stay within the confines of how we were already operating, but let's just repackage it in a different way. We'll get rid of a few things, add a few things. Yeah. And what they needed to do, if they listened to teachers in this big listen, is they needed to reinvent the circle. They needed a square. They needed to go away from the circle and completely reinvent the system. And that's what they failed to do, which is why everyone is so annoyed at this. Yeah. Do I think this is better than the old system? Yes. Okay. I do think it's marginally better. Okay. All right, and we'll go into why in a minute. Sure. But do I think it's enough for an enormous government-funded body, millions of pounds spent on this, for them to be like, yeah, it took us 5,000 years to do this, and we've finally reformed it, and they've come out with the most like meek, worst possible outcome, really, of a reform that you could call a reform. Yeah. I'm like, come on. Like, it's just so insulting.
The idea of Ofsted going into like a pyramid and watching an ancient Egyptian lesson and then it being the same 5,000 years later. Literally. So I think that jumped out at me that really, really just... It made me laugh in a way that I just despair. Is that they have genuinely changed outstanding for exemplary. Yeah. They have genuinely changed good for either strong or secure. So more chance to be positive, I suppose. There's 3 now.
They've added in an extra one.
That's nice, isn't it? And I know we've got a darker green rather than a light green. Isn't that lovely? Yeah. And they've instead of requires improvement, it's attention needed or causing concern. I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, that is the most, like, it's the most... Are they trying to gaslight us into thinking they've changed something because they just go, well, the words are different? No, you have not listened. Yeah. Like, you have genuinely not listened.
We'll save your little feelings by not calling you inadequate anymore. We'll just say causing concern. causing concern. It's big alarm bells ring now when they come. They have a little. They have to. Do you know all Ofsted inspectors now have to wear this little thing on their shoulders? It has 2 red bells on it, right? That go. An alarm goes off when they feel
Can
that
they
it's
change
causing
it to
concern.
like green and amber? Like, is it?
No, it's
no.
only, no. They can't do
just red.
the good things. They just kind of get ignored. But when something's bad, and it says because obviously Ofsted inspectors have had training now. It says to them, don't cause stress. Don't cause stress. So the Ofsted inspectors are reminded, let's not cause any stress to these teachers when we're saying that this area is causing concern.
They've had training because when they say it's causing concern, they say it in a nice way.
Yeah.
Guys, your school, it's causing concern.
Little round of applause.
And they smile, and it feels great, and it's just changed everything.
Yeah.
I want to very quickly then. We've got some teacher tap data we'll come into later. We've been in touch and we've been talking to Teacher Tap. They've got some really cool data as to the reaction to this. But let's just dive a little bit deeper. Sorry for using the term diving deeper. I know we don't do that anymore.
My little feelings.
No, we can't dive deep. Let's scuba low. We'll call it that instead because that's not the same. We're gonna scuba low down here into the what is happening in terms of what we're judging them on now. So we've talked about the fact that the one-word judgments have changed. So the red to green, exemplary, etc.
Yeah.
But what are we actually judging them on then? What are these 9 to 11 things that you've been talking about?
Yeah, so fortunately you'll be pleased to know they got rid of teaching and learning. They stopped bear with me. They stopped judging teaching and learning. It's now developing teaching and curriculum.
Oh, they're separate.
What I'm trying to say, I'm joking, it's the same thing. They've just repackaged. You looked at me so panicked then, like, no, they didn't, Hayden.
No,
they didn't.
I wasn't panicked. I was thinking, what on earth are they? What? They've got rid of that. What?
Yeah, no, they didn't. No, they didn't at all. They didn't really change anything, to be honest with you. They just subcategorized it a bit more. So the 9 things I'm going to look at here, plus the extra 2, the sixth form and the early years, are they'll look at achievement and give you one of those 5 gradings. Leadership and governance. Okay. Attendance. Do you wanna go off on that one? Or?
No, not particularly, because we've said it before. We've done all this before. I just think the problem here, the problem I see straight away is just it's going to have the same old problems as before, where there'll be leadership panicking.
Yeah.
This isn't going to stop schools panicking from wanting to impress Ofsted, because we still feel like we need to get these report cards.
Yeah, of course.
Instead of it just being we need to get to outstanding, it'll be, we need to get to exemplary. And all that will happen now instead is there's 9 ways for people to get stressed. I don't get it. It's like, no. Before it was like teaching and learning. I was like, okay, well, let's just get behind that. Now it's like developing teaching specifically. It's like, cool. I get the idea because the government and Ofsted are trying to put pressure onto schools to do well in these things. So the only reason attendance is there is because attendance is awful.
Yeah.
So the only reason it's there is because they absolutely know what they're doing. They're not doing it. They're not doing it to help schools. This is what winds me up. None of this is to help schools. The only reason attendance is on this list is because they want to put pressure on schools to push themselves to the limit with no extra budget being put in for it to fix attendance. Same with inclusion. They want to make aren't we amazing, Ofsted and the government, because we're making inclusion the front cause that we're really pushing, and now it's got its own thing in our Ofsted judgments. No, you're horrible gaslighting idiots who just want to say that because you know schools will then panic and put all of their effort into it by working themselves to the bone, because we really, really, really care about our kids, and we really do care about inclusion and want to help as many kids as we can. All you're doing is making it even more stressful for us, because we're now going to be really harshly judged on it in a system where you are also in charge of the funding and the money we get for it, and you are not giving us enough. So you are not helping us remotely. You are adding pressure so that you can look like you can wear a badge saying, aren't we great, this government helping out and doing the best we can with Ofsted? No, you're increasing pressure. You are not helping remotely, because if you were helping and were listening to teachers, you'd be whacking up investment in these areas. You'd be helping us with support, and you'd be taking these children seriously who can't even get a diagnosis for 3 years. It's disgusting. This is not helping. This is just labeling something so you can say you're helping and hope someone else picks up the flack for you, because they'll be the ones getting judged on it. It's horrible. It's disgusting.
I think there's one more element as well of this, just listening to you talk about that they've been really smart with this play of just saying, well, we'll just put attendance in the report card. It's because they don't want to do the dirty work.
Exactly.
What they don't want to, they want schools to put their necks on the line. They want schools to go in and you can be the controversial ones who put in some draconian measures because you're so panicked about attendance now, doing things that maybe you think are even wrong, but because you got this report card now, it's kind of forcing your hand. We don't want to say it as Ofsted, because do you know what? We know we'll get a bad light for it in the press, because actually what we want to say is, okay, we're going to start fining kids for not coming in. We're going to come pick you up every single day. We're going to do all these other draconian kind of things, but we don't want to say that as Ofsted, even though it'd be much easier for us just to say it from top down and everyone just does it, right? right? We want the schools to make those decisions so they look bad. They're at risk of looking bad if the parents don't like it. But you know what? Overall, though, yeah, some schools will look bad because of it, but attendance will go up, though. And who's going to take the credit? Ofsted.
We put it on a report card, guys, and it's got better, so it's us.
Yeah, it's
no,
disgusting.
it's not. It's disgusting. And do you know, the more and more I think about it, it's the entrenched system of what we have, which is just horrendous, and this does nothing for that. And I think that's why teachers are exasperated, because do you know what? I think if you just look at it on the surface level, right, and there is an argument you could have where you're saying, well, I think it's slightly better because of this. Mm-hmm. I also really think you could say it's worse because of the reasons we've said as well.
Yeah, sure.
So what, you know, we can look into the teacher tap data now. Maybe that'd be really interesting. But I guess my overall point is, I think where the most anger and disillusionment comes from is that we were gaslit for 2 years into thinking they were listening and they were going to change, they were going to do something. Mm-hmm. I, for one, never thought that was going to happen.
No.
I never, ever thought that was going to happen. And I'm glad I didn't fall into that trap, because here's what's happened. It's just repackaged into nonsense.
Yeah.
It's do you know what? And people will come back to us and say, well, don't you care about these things? Isn't it good that we're caring about these things? I care about these things more than anyone. Because I love teaching, I love my kids, I love education, I love my classes, I love helping them as much as I can. The only reason I care is because I care so much. The only reason I care about these changes is because I want it fixed so bad. So when these artificial changes come in that literally do nothing to help the fundamental cogs in our education system, just so that someone can get some political clout, it winds me up so much.
Easiest analogy here, right, is as your teachers, right? Now, imagine Ofsted is the teacher, okay, in this situation. Do you improve things in your class by measuring them? Because that is it. And my point here is they're not doing the next bit. I measure stuff all the time. And then I do something about it and I raise standards. As the teacher, I take responsibility for that thing that I'm measuring.
Yeah.
And I do everything I can in my power and my time and the money I have, the budget I have, whatever it is, the situation I'm in, to do something about it and raise that standard. This is why I don't like Ofsted. They don't do the bit that they say they do.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're measuring attendance now. Okay, so you already know it's bad. We all already know that. So well done. You found information that we already know. So that's done nothing. What are you doing about it? Well, stops there. Okay, brilliant, cool. Let's just measure more stuff. That's what we're doing. Measuring more stuff.
It's like what we said about leaders earlier, who just criticize and moan and say things are bad. That is the exact same thing. If Ofsted are just coming in and saying that's bad, I'm like, thanks. Okay, cool. We do need to be called out sometimes, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
But can we please have a supportive environment where you're helping us do this thing? Or again, just political clout. Winds me up, no doubt.
Let's finish the list. I'm going to start again and give you the 9 areas on top of sixth form and early years. So it's achievement, leadership and governance, attendance, curriculum, behavior and attitudes, developing teaching, inclusion, personal development and well-being. And that's the last one, because then it's at sixth form. And
then there is one that you've missed, but it's just it doesn't come into this sliding category, which, by the way, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, this is a good change.
Safeguarding is simply you've met it or you haven't.
Yeah, and it's separate.
And do you know what? Yeah, it's separate. And do you know what? That is what safeguarding should be. You either are a school meeting the safeguarding demands or you're not. And do you know what? If you're not, you need to be called out on it. Because it is so serious.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think we can still talk about the consistency of, judgments and etc. and all that. That's always going to be a problem when you have a judgment system and there are individuals who are going to do it. That's always going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good thing. And I think the safeguarding of our children is paramount. And I think I agree with that. I think if safeguarding was secure or strong, it's like, what are you talking about? It's so important that you're either doing it or you're not.
I would go as far as saying that it's the only part of what Ofsted do that is actually worthwhile at the moment in that current
framework. Of just criticising and judging.
Yeah, as in looking at safeguarding. Honestly, I think all of that stuff, they could put all that in the bin, with themselves, and just leave a couple of members to come around with their little special whistles and their shoulder pads and come around and honestly just look at safeguarding, because that is the only bit that they're doing, which is right. I agree with you. Yeah. It's like, hey, get rid of the rest. Those other 11 areas, get rid of them. Yeah. Can you just come and look at safeguarding until you thought of a better system, please, on how to actually raise standards? Because you're not doing it. So.
Like when you judge attendance, we said this before. Is it just going to be like, oh, it's 96%, so it's green?
Yeah, of course it is. Oh,
it's an 89%, so it's orange. That's so
maybe it won't.
Reductive.
Maybe it'll be a bit more, considerable of like
what you're doing,
the area. I don't know. Maybe your school has notoriously bad attendance,
and
but you've actually raised it a bit, and they're like, okay, this is an exemplary example of how to raise attendance. Yeah, so from 40 to 50%.
If your attendance, like if I take an actual figure that might be realistic in the most like trickier areas. Let's just say your attendance is like 87%, right? Let's just say, mate, I don't know what they are, but let's just say it's like that.
Yeah.
And your leadership and your school have taken it to 93%.
Yeah.
Right? To me, that would scream exemplary. That would scream like, wow, you are moving the dial. You could not do more than that, because at the end of the day, it's not you have to get the kids into school.
And all we had to do was fire all of our TAs, buy 7 cars, and we go and pick up all the kids now. So it's so much better, isn't it? Because this metric has improved my school.
No, I think they bought 8 cars. 7 were used to pick up kids, and one of them was the maternity. One of them was the Matt CEO who just got the car. I think that was what they were doing.
Yeah, a little bonus.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, but there's the areas. Let's talk about teacher tap, shall we?
Yeah, so this Teacher Tap, by the way, quick shout out, unbelievable. We've been speaking to them, and they've been offering us up some data, which is so useful. So in the future podcast as well, you might see us do a little bit where Teacher Tap have given us these insights. They've sent us these blogs, and they've had some reaction already to these changes. Because like I said, we're a bit behind because this was announced when we released our last episode. So first up, straight up, I wanted to mention something to do with school staff and who they are in a school.
Okay.
Head teachers were the most likely to have read the plans, which makes sense. Of course, head teachers giving their ears to the ground. It's them. They're the ones ultimately who have the judgment resting on their shoulders.
So they've properly read through the Ofsted plan.
Exactly. So head teachers are way more likely to have read it, but they are also the most likely to feel negatively about these reforms. So 43% of head teachers surveyed by Teacher Tap said that they felt very negative, and 24% said somewhat negative. That is 67%, 2/3 of head teachers had a negative reaction to these reforms. At what point do we look at that and do we say, these reforms are bad then? Like by definition.
Yeah.
You can look at that and maybe someone in the government will be like, no, we're driving standard. We're doing well. We're doing all this. Some spokesperson for Ofsted, no, it's because of this. It's because of that. If your head teachers have 2/3 of them saying that this is bad reform, it's probably bad reform.
Yeah, of course it is. And it was the year before when they asked them, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. But what politicians are very good at is going, okay, what is 1/3 of all the head teachers? Is it a couple of thousand? Okay, cool, use that stat. Thousands of head teachers think that this reform is great. There you go. Politicians win, gaslight everyone like they always do, repeat the cycle. It's depressing.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Absolutely. So in general, when asked on Teacher Tap as people who work in schools, how do you feel about these plans? What percentage, Hayden, do you think felt very positive about these plans?
Oh, let me guess, without looking at the screen, in which I know. Is it 0?
0%.
Yeah, 0%.
No one feels very positive about these changes. 6% feels somewhat positive. And the rest of it is either neutral or negative, or they haven't seen the plans yet. Don't get me wrong, a big chunk of people hadn't seen the plans yet. I think it was close to 40% of people hadn't seen the plans.
That's fair enough.
But if we look at the percentage saying that it's positive or very positive, it's 6%.
And this is out of 10,000 teachers, by the way, just to make that really clear. 10,000 teachers did this survey.
0%. So a significantly low amount of people, close to 0, thought that this was a bad
enough
idea.
that it got rounded down to 0%. Like, Christ almighty.
21% said neutral. I think if there wasn't this huge push in the last couple of years for it to really reform and change, and the horrible situation with Ruth Perry and people feeling really strongly about it, I think there'd probably be more in the neutral camp. I think there'd be more like saying, "Oh, what? You didn't do anything." Neutral. I think the pushing of the negative stuff is just people saying, "Well, this does nothing." The fact it's neutral makes me negative about it, because what was the point of it?
It's true. Do you know what? When I did this Teacher Tap, because obviously I did it on my phone, download the app yourself, you can do it as a teacher. I think I put neutral at the time, and I kind of wish I could change it now, but because I was feeling like, I haven't read through them properly yet. I'd seen a few headlines. I was like, okay, well, we talked about them before, the leaked versions. I was like, well, I'm just in the middle. I don't think it's any better.
Sure.
I think it's worse in some aspects, but I think it's better in some aspects. I'm like, it's just the same thing repackaged. But having had this conversation now, I think I'd probably go down one and put somewhat negative. That's probably where I'd really vote.
Okay, so the vast majority of school staff think that. And again, like we said about the head teachers saying mostly negative, the school in general, like, come on, this is enough data for you to look at, and you should be thinking that's bad. And if you were actually working for staff and education in general, if you had that as your forefront, you would make changes now. You'd be like, okay, this is wrong. But they already had the big listen. They already chose not to do it. So we know the path they're going down.
Do you want me to be a politician again? Ready?
Yep.
Well, actually, we've seen that 38% of teachers didn't even bother to read our plans. Teachers do not care. They don't care about driving standards up, but we do.
I think that's more a Daily Mail spokesperson.
But
they would look at that and they'd be like, well, no, it's just a communication thing. This is what winds me up more than anything, right? When people go, no, you just don't understand. I had someone comment on Instagram, I've got to say this quickly. because I was talking about multi-academy trusts and CEOs and stuff like that. And I get that I'm way more on one side of this argument and there's other sides to it. But I simply held my case against someone who was defending them and saying why they're good. And I was like, no, I get all that, but I think overall, I think it's this, this, and this. And one of the replies I got was, what you're doing there is confirmation bias, because you're seeing it in play, and you're extrapolating that to everything. And don't worry about it. Everyone has confirmation bias. I was just like, I had to reply. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm literally saying that I understand. You can't just dismiss my opinion because you framed it as something that's bad. You've now framed it as confirmation bias, and it's okay. Don't worry about it. Though we all do it. I don't. I don't do it, but we all do it. So don't worry about that. But I don't do it. So my point of view is right, and yours is just completely wrong because I've decided it's confirmation bias. That's what people will do with this. They'll go, oh, well, it's a communication thing. People don't really understand what's going on. No, I really do understand it. I've read through all of these blogs that you posted. I've read through the education statement from the government. I do understand it, and I think it's bad. So that's the end of the conversation in terms of you can't detriment my opinion. I'm a teacher and I think it's bad. Let's talk about it.
I find it so funny because people do this in all walks of life. When people use confirmation bias to therefore go one step further and say therefore it doesn't exist. I'm like, what are you talking about? The confirmation bias, fair enough, that might be a thing. But it does still confirm, though, from my own experiences and people around me, that this thing does exist. Maybe I'm misrepresenting how much it exists. But when someone says, oh, it's just confirmation bias, so you're completely wrong. It doesn't even exist what you've experienced. It's just confirmation bias. So what do you mean? The word confirmation is in it. It's in it. Okay, it's a bias.
I've seen it happen.
No, it's not existing. It's just confirmation bias. So no. I'm confirming that I have seen this happen. It's just that I might be not seeing it not happen because I'm only surrounded by people. Just shut up. What are you talking about?
It's just such a nice way of trying to shut down an argument with someone. It's like, just because I have a different opinion to you doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about.
It's a classic. Oh, I'm better than you.
Approach.
Don't worry, hun. Don't worry, love. Don't worry, love. It's just confirmation bias. We've all been there. You probably didn't know what it was called, but now you know. All right, wink, wink. Next time you'll be all right.
Right. Let's take a look. I want to take a look quickly. Just say the data here in terms of the 5-tier system. From causing concern to exemplary, because we spoke about how insane we think it is. Do we think that it is a good thing? Will it provide a fairer picture? Was the question for schools. So will it do what it set out to do and be fairer for schools? Much fairer. What percentage?
Shall we whiz through these numbers? Go on then. 1% think it's going to be much fairer.
Somewhat fairer.
24%.
Decent chunk. And I can see why, because the idea being, instead of just teaching and learning, maybe it's fairer because, do you know what? We're good in both. It's not just hiding something, and some schools may be behind us. Maybe it's fairer because it's a more accurate. And the argument from the government is, no, this is more detailed. This is what parents want. And there is an argument to say that, okay, do you know what? Will it be fairer? Maybe because it's showing.
Well, it also, really simplistically, I'm just not even making this complex. It is objectively fairer because there's 5 now instead of 4. Doesn't mean it's better.
Sure.
But it is fairer. So, of course it's fairer because now I've got 3 chances to not be labelled as rubbish rather than 2. So it's like, it's almost not even a point. It doesn't even, it's like, it is somewhat. I think I put somewhat fairer. I'm like, because 5 is more than 4.
Exactly.
It's not better. I think it's just a stupid system. It's like if you said, is it fairer now? We've now got a 10-point system. I'd be like,
well, maybe,
okay, it's a bit fairer because there's more points you could be at.
But we're not talking about the implementation of it either.
It doesn't make any sense.
Like, so 63% said no difference. I can really understand that point because it's just like, well, it is no different. You're still judging everything in a school on the same way you did before, only you're choosing a different word this time. Somewhat less fair and much less fair only counted for about 12%. So in general, we can see here, people think it's more fair or the same. Do you know, I get that. That's kind of your argument earlier where you say, well, is it a bit better maybe than the previous one?
A bit,
well, I guess in this respect.
Depends how you interpret that question, I think.
That's for sure.
One. But really, the massive one there was no difference because it is literally the same thing.
Exactly that. And the last one is just about inclusion. And I think this just nod towards what politicians are saying, like, we really care. So inclusion has its own thing now. And that sounds great. That sounds fantastic, right? But you know what's going to really help with inclusion in a school? Funding stuff properly so that we can actually help our children get diagnoses, get the support they need. This having it on a strong, secure, exemplary base is not going to impact how I help my children and how I help inclusivity in school.
Well, before you do the stats of this, right, I just want to really just root this again in. If you said to me, do you think putting attendance on the report will improve attendance? My answer would be yes. Not for good reasons. I don't think it's driving standards up. I think it will do it because it puts that horrible pressure on schools. It comes with a huge price. So I kind of take this question the same way. Do you think inclusion... Do you think adding inclusion on the report will lead to meaningful improvements on how schools support disadvantaged and SEND pupils?
I'm going to slightly push back because I don't think there's much extra room for what schools are doing right now. it suggests that there's more we can do on what we've got. So in saying that it will improve because it's now in this form, well, it's suggesting that we can do more, but we're not at the minute. My point here is I kind of think we're doing as much as we possibly can. Like, I get what you mean in terms of maybe you'll do even more because something else will drop off.
That's what I'm saying.
But there's still 9 things. Like, what's going to drop off? Like, is attendance going to drop? Is teaching and learning? Is leading and government? It's all there covered.
I know what you mean.
So something else might drop off, but it will still be on that chart.
Okay, and all I'm saying is that thing is teacher wellbeing. It just goes back to do you know what's going to drop off? It's just teachers even more. More teachers are going to quit. More teachers are going to get the burnout. More teachers are going to have breakdowns in school because this is completely unmanageable. That's kind of what I'm saying. So I think it will improve. I think the support schools give to disadvantaged pupils will improve off of the back of teachers again and other staff in the school. And it's just like it doesn't work because what we really need, like you said, is the funding to do that and the resources.
So 53% either said probably not or definitely not. So it won't actually make a difference. And I think those people are just saying, well, I'm already doing, I can't possibly do any more or something, anything. Unsure, 30% is people are just like probably disillusioned. I think that's the big feeling from this, disillusion. It's like, okay, whatever, just not do anything. And then probably will make it fairer or definitely is 16%. So I think that's your line there. It probably will help in this way, but it's not the way to fix things. Just a lump more.
It'll probably be help because you know what? It's going to make me do an extra hour of work at the weekend. And unless I quit, that's how it's going to happen.
And I think just to summarize, that's what Ofsted have done. That is the outlook. That's the outlook we've got. I think the reason why I'm pushed towards more of a negative feeling is because I just think they really egged up how much they were going to listen, how much they were going to change. We've got a new government in who were really bigging up education. It's going to be top of the list, blah, blah, blah. And I think it is really demoralizing to see that these huge changes that have been put in place are making such a negligible difference as to what the actual problems are. And I think that's driving the reaction that we're seeing to this, which is just simply, what are you doing? What is wrong with you?
To summarize, the only good parts from this for me are getting rid of the one-word judgments for the overall school. I think that was a really stupid thing, and I'm glad they got rid of that. And making safeguarding a kind of its own separate thing, and it's just like you were doing it or not, and keeping it away from, like, it's not just banded together with everything else. It's like, it's no, safeguarding is so important, it's its own thing. But everything else that we've discussed, I just think is either more of the same or actually just worse. It's going to add pressure to schools. It's going to squeeze schools even further. We'll be more squoze than ever. Teachers will leave more than ever. I'm calling that right now. I'll come back to this episode when in 2 years' time, the data's even worse. Teacher retention data is even worse.
Will you be one of them?
Probably.
Honestly.
Probably. At this rate. Yeah.
My God. Right, let's finish up there. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you next time. It's not much of an episode next, is it?
I'll contain my excitement for episode... What's 99 plus 1?
I don't know.
I can't bridge past the,
past
the tens
you
yet.
can't speak properly and you can't bridge past... I think actually you need this report card. I think causing concern, I'm afraid.
Oh.
Yeah. See you next time.
For episode 100. Bye.